The arrival. The warship Defiant materialized in the heart of the Galactic Council's sacred space like a phantom taking form. There was no warning, no hyperspace distortion, no energy wake. It simply appeared. The massive vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its obsidian hull absorbing, rather than reflecting the light of the system's blue-white star. Its surface was unmarked except for a single emblem near the command section, Earth's flag with 13 stars arranged in a new constellation pattern. Within moments, the system's defense grid registered the intrusion. 57 patrol vessels broke formation to intercept, their weapons charging but held in reserve. The mysterious vessel made no aggressive moves, simply hanging in space, waiting. Captain Alina Reyes stood on the Defiance bridge, her tall frame silhouetted against the holographic displays that surrounded her command chair. She watched the alien vessels approach with clinical detachment, noting their weapons capabilities, shield configurations, and the panicked chatter flooding the communication channels. "They're hailing us, Captain," Lieutenant Ameri said from the communication station. "Multiple frequencies, multiple languages. They sound confused." "I imagine they are," Alina replied, straightening her midnight blue uniform. The small pin on her collar, a stylized phoenix rising from Earth, caught the light. "Broadcast on all frequencies. First contact protocol Omega. Let's introduce ourselves properly." The message that streamed across the void was deceptively simple. Greetings in 27 different galactic languages, followed by authentication codes that would send shockwaves through the Council's security apparatus, codes proving that humanity had maintained deep cover observers within the highest echelons of galactic society for over 40 years. On the Council's central habitat ring, Supreme Arbiter Kolvosh of the Naxian hierarchy nearly collapsed when the authentication sequences scrolled across his private terminal. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly in sequence, a sign of extreme distress among his species. "Impossible," he whispered, his scaled skin paling to ash gray. The codes included personal identifier strings that only 5 beings in the galaxy should have known. "Summon an emergency council session immediately." 3 hours later, the Grand Assembly chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with nervous energy as representatives of 37 spacefaring civilizations took their seats. The massive amphitheater, built into an asteroid at the exact gravitational center point between the 5 founding species' territories, had never been filled so quickly. A holographic projection of the Defiant hung above the central dais, rotating slowly to allow all members a clear view of the vessel that had bypassed their most sophisticated detection systems. Captain Reyes's image materialized beside it, her expression calm but resolute. "Honorable representatives," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast chamber. "For 73 years, you have known humanity as a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel. You've monitored our fumbling attempts at fusion drives, our clumsy first steps into FTL technology. You've categorized us as a Grade C civilization, centuries away from meaningful participation in galactic affairs." She paused, letting the moment stretch uncomfortably. "That was precisely what we wanted you to believe." The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted questions and accusations, translator units struggling to keep pace with the cacophony. The Vorel delegation emitted high-frequency distress pulses that caused several other species discomfort. 2 Meridian observers simply vanished, presumably to report to their hive mind. Reyes waited patiently for order to return. When it did, she continued as if there had been no interruption. "While you monitored our public space programs, our actual advancement continued in secret, in facilities beneath our oceans, in hollow asteroids beyond Neptune, in research dimensions accessible only through quantum folding. Every failed experiment you observed was cover for a dozen successes. Every primitive prototype, we revealed masked technological leaps that your observers never suspected." Supreme Arbiter Kolvosh rose from his seat, his ceremonial robes billowing around his massive frame. "This is an outrage, a violation of." "Of what precisely?" Reyes interrupted smoothly. "We violated no treaties, broke no laws. We simply allowed you to underestimate us. That's hardly a crime under Council statutes." "Then why reveal yourselves now?" asked Ambassador T. Larry of the Eltian Federation, her voice calmer than most. "Why this theatrical entrance?" "Because something is coming," Rise replied, her tone suddenly grave. "Something that threatens not just humanity, but every species represented in this chamber." With a gesture, she brought up new holographic displays. Dark shapes moving between stars, defying conventional analysis, corrupting the space around them. The images were deliberately obscured, showing just enough to provoke fear without revealing specifics. "We detected these entities approaching from the galactic rim 18 months ago. We could have remained hidden, protected Earth alone, but we chose to reveal ourselves, to offer our technology and knowledge in the defense of all sentient life." She straightened, her expression hardening. "You have 24 standard hours to decide. Join us as equals in facing this threat, or we withdraw and prepare our defenses alone. The choice is yours." Her image vanished, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Back aboard the Defiant, Elena removed her formal tunic and poured herself a glass of water in her private quarters. The first move had been made. Now everything would change. "Computer, secure communication to Admiral Takeda," she ordered. A holographic display shimmered into existence, showing an older Japanese man with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. "It's done," Elena reported. "The hook is set." Admiral Takeda nodded slowly. And the Council's response, exactly as predicted. Confusion, anger, fear, and beneath it all, curiosity. "They'll agree to our terms. And if they discover the truth?" Takeda asked, his expression unreadable. Elena's mouth formed a tight line. "Then humanity will be alone, as we've always been. But they won't discover it, not until it's too late to matter." The truth was, humanity needed the Council's resources and cooperation as desperately as they claimed the Council needed theirs. The threat approaching from the rim was real, but humanity's technological advancement was selective. They had made incredible breakthroughs in certain areas: stealth systems, quantum communications, dimensional engineering, but lagged dangerously behind in others. The deception was necessary. Earth's analysts had calculated that approaching the Council openly, as a developing civilization seeking aid, would result in either dismissal or subjugation. This way, they might forge an alliance of equals. "The Council will send inspectors," Takeda warned. "They'll want proof of our capabilities." "Let them come," Elena replied confidently. "The Defiant is real enough, and they'll see exactly what we want them to see." As their conversation ended, Elena turned to look out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the enemy was approaching, an enemy that could end all civilization. Humanity's great gamble had begun. They had rewritten the rules of first contact with their deception. Now they just had to hope the galaxy would forgive them if they all survived. The revelation. 3 days after the Defiant's dramatic appearance, the Grand Assembly chamber had transformed into a battlefield of a different sort. Diplomatic alliances formed and dissolved hourly as the 37-member species struggled to process humanity's revelations and determine their response. Dr. Mira Patel stood calmly at the center of the storm. Unlike Captain Rice's dramatic entrance, this presentation had been officially requested by the Council's Scientific Directorate. The holographic display above Mira's head showed nothing but static interference, which was precisely what made it terrifying. "What you're seeing, or rather, not seeing, is a region approximately 18,000 light-years from the galactic rim," Mira explained, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "This footage comes from humanity's long-range quantum observer network, technology that can detect fluctuations in reality that your sensors aren't calibrated to perceive." Ambassador Jokar of the Tellarian Combine raised a tentacle. "These credentials you've provided, they suggest you're merely a xenobiologist, yet you speak of quantum technologies beyond our understanding. Explain." Mira smiled thinly. On Earth, I am indeed a xenobiologist. I studied your species for 15 years before you knew we were watching. But in truth, I head the Dimensional Sciences Division of Earth's Defense Force. My credentials are as real as they need to be for this forum." She gestured, and the static resolved into a time-lapse recording. The chamber filled with gasps as they watched a yellow dwarf star, not unlike Sol, seemingly dissolve into threads of energy that were drawn away by entities that hurt the eyes to look at. "We call them the Void Weavers," Mira continued, "not because we understand what they are, but because we needed a designation for our reports. They're moving through the galaxy systematically, consuming stellar matter and converting it into this." The display shifted again, showing writhing structures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than space allowed. Several representatives had to look away, their sensory organs unable to process the geometries. "If what you're showing us is accurate," began Supreme Arbiter Kulvosh. "It is," Mira interrupted firmly. "Every measurement has been verified by multiple independent systems. We're dealing with entities that can reshape the fundamental forces of reality, and they're headed toward populated space. Why should we trust this data?" demanded Ambassador Grax of the Keldorian Assembly, his bony ridges flushing with skepticism. "Humanity has already proven itself capable of elaborate deception." Mira smiled grimly. "Because we've been fighting them already, quietly, secretly. Remember the Lyra incident?" The chamber grew very quiet. 18 months earlier, an unexplained spatial anomaly had consumed 3 outpost systems near the Lyra constellation. The official council report called it a natural phenomenon, a cascade of quantum instabilities that had forced the evacuation of 16 colonies. "That was us," Mira confirmed, bringing up new tactical displays showing human vessels engaging with shadowy entities at the edge of the affected systems. A task force of Earth ships intercepted a scout group of Void Weavers. We prevailed, barely, and lost 3 vessels in the process. But it was just a scout group. She brought up projection models showing the creatures advance. "Our calculations suggest their main migration will reach populated council space within 9 months. Earth has already begun constructing defensive systems, but we can't cover enough territory alone." For the next 3 hours, Mira answered questions, provided evidence, and outlined humanity's proposals for cooperation. As the session neared its conclusion, a new representative approached the speaking platform. Sentinel Prime Envoth of the Draconid Imperium, a species known for their militant isolation and technological prowess. "Your species concealed its true nature for decades," Envoth stated, his reptilian features unreadable. "You infiltrated our governments, stole our secrets, and now ask us to believe you've done this for our collective benefit. Give me one reason why the Imperium should trust humanity." The chamber fell silent. The Draconids controlled the largest military fleet in the galaxy, and their support would be crucial. Mira considered her response carefully, then activated a private communication channel visible only to Envoth. On it appeared a single image, a Draconid research facility located in a dimensional pocket that, officially, no other species knew existed. "Because," Mira said aloud, "we've known about your secret dimensional research for 15 years, Sentinel Prime. We've known about the accident that occurred there 3 years ago. We could have exposed it to the Council, but we didn't. We understand the necessity of secrets." Envoth's inner eyelids flickered, the only sign of his shock. "Instead," Mira continued, "we're offering you this." She transmitted detailed schematics for a dimensional stabilization system, technology that would prevent the catastrophic collapse that the Draconid scientists had been desperately trying to avoid. "The Void Weavers exist partially in the same dimensional frequency your researchers accessed," Mira explained. "Help us, and we'll help you prevent the cascade failure your scientists predict will occur within 5 years." Envoth was silent for a long moment. Then, to the surprise of the entire council, he inclined his head in the Draconid gesture of respect. "The Imperium will hear humanity's proposal," he announced formally. As the session adjourned, representatives broke into smaller groups, already forming alliances and negotiating terms. A foundation of cooperation had been laid, however reluctantly. In her private chamber aboard the Defiant, Mira received a secured transmission from Elena. "Well played," the captain commended. "The Draconids were the key." "It was a calculated risk," Mira admitted. "If Envoth had exposed our knowledge publicly." "But he didn't," Elena noted. "Self-preservation is a powerful motivator across all species." "We're still walking a dangerous line," Mira cautioned. "The Council is agreeing to cooperation, but they're sending inspection teams to Earth. They want to verify our capabilities firsthand." Elena's expression remained neutral. "Let them come. Project Phoenix is ready for visitors." Project Phoenix, humanity's grand deception and last hope combined. A massive planetary installation built beneath the Pacific Ocean, filled with technology that was functional but deliberately designed to impress Council observers. Some of it was genuine innovation. Other aspects were carefully crafted illusions built around a core of actual capabilities. "And the real project?" Mira asked cautiously, even on their secure channel. "Proceeding on schedule," Elena replied. "The Jupiter shipyards remain undetected. The first fleet will be operational within 4 months." As their conversation ended, Mira reviewed the day's developments. The alliance was forming, but built on partial truths and strategic omissions. Humanity had gambled everything on this elaborate deception, revealing their advancement while still concealing their vulnerabilities. If they succeeded, civilization might survive the coming storm. If they failed, humanity would face the Void Weavers alone, a prospect that Earth's best models gave a survival probability of less than 3%. As she prepared for the next day's negotiations, Mira wondered if the ends truly justified the means. Then she remembered the footage from the Lyra incident. The screams of dying colonists as reality itself unraveled around them. She hardened her resolve. Sometimes deception was necessary for survival. The Alliance. Commander Jackson Chen floated in the observation dome of Titan Station, watching as the first contingent of alien inspection teams approached in their diplomatic vessels. The massive gas giant Saturn dominated the view, its rings catching the distant sunlight in bands of gold and amber. Behind him, holographic displays tracked the visitors' approach vectors. 14 species represented, reported Lieutenant Kim from the monitoring station. The Draconids sent 3 vessels, including what appears to be a science cruiser. The Naxians and Elshans have diplomatic shuttles only. The Tellarians. She paused, frowning at her readings. "Sir, the Tellarian vessel is heavily armed beneath its diplomatic markings." Chen nodded, unsurprised. "As expected. Maintain monitoring, but take no action. They're testing our detection capabilities." "Yes, sir." Estimated arrival at the outer checkpoint in 22 minutes. Chen turned from the viewport and straightened his uniform. The moment humanity had been planning for decades was finally here, the official inspection that would either cement their deception or expose it completely. "Status report on Phoenix installations," he asked as he moved toward the transit tube. "All systems operational," Kim confirmed. "The research levels are populated and active. Dr. Hayes reports that the dimensional aperture is stable and ready for demonstration. Admiral Takeda has arrived from Earth to oversee the proceedings." "Very good. I'll be in the reception bay." As Chen departed, Kim returned to her monitoring duties, unaware that 3 levels below her position, a far more secretive operation was unfolding. In a sealed chamber accessible only through quantum-locked transporters, Dr. Elias Ramsey studied displays showing the true threat approaching from the galactic rim. Unlike the carefully edited footage shown to the Council, these sensors revealed the full horror of the Void Weavers and the disturbing reality that Earth's scientists still barely understood what they were facing. "The dimensional incursion is accelerating," he noted to the small team gathered around him. "The Weavers have consumed 3 more star systems since our last report. Their pattern generation has evolved." Admiral Takeda's weathered face remained impassive as he reviewed the data. Time estimate to populated regions. 7 months, possibly 6, Ramsey replied grimly. Not the 9 we told the Council. Takeda nodded slowly. Then Project Lazarus becomes our priority. What's the latest from Jupiter? A holographic display activated, showing massive construction bays hidden within Jupiter's atmosphere. There, protected by the gas giant's radiation belts and gravity well, the true extent of humanity's technological achievement was taking shape. A fleet of vessels that combined Earth's innovations with reverse-engineered alien technology. The first 5 vessels will be operational within 60 days, reported General Yazzie, her dark eyes reflecting the holographic light. The dimensional drives are stable, but the shield technology remains problematic. We've incorporated what we could salvage from the Lyra encounter, but without Council expertise, which is precisely why this inspection must succeed. Takeda concluded. We need their cooperation, their technology, without revealing our limitations. He turned to face his team. Operation Phoenix begins now. Maintain communication blackout until the inspection concludes. 2 hours later, Commander Chen stood in the Grand Reception Hall of Titan Station, watching as representatives from 14 galactic civilizations stepped through the airlock. The station, a marvel of engineering excavated within Saturn's largest moon, had been prepared specifically for this moment, with certain areas enhanced to showcase humanity's capabilities, while others remained carefully restricted. Welcome to Titan Station. Chen greeted them formally. I'm Commander Jackson Chen, your liaison for this inspection. Admiral Takeda sends his regards, and will join us shortly. Sentinel Prime Envoth of the Draconid stepped forward, his massive scaled form dominating the delegation. We are impressed with your facility, Commander. Our sensors detected no evidence of this station's existence until we passed the orbital marker. Dimensional phasing technology, Chen explained smoothly. The station exists partially shifted into an adjacent reality, making it virtually undetectable to conventional sensors. He didn't mention that maintaining the phase shift consumed enormous power and that only certain sections of the station actually employed the technology. The rest was conventional construction hidden by more mundane means. You will understand our need to verify such claims personally, stated Ambassador T. Larry of the Elchins, her silver eyes narrowing. The Council has approved a thorough inspection protocol. Of course, Chen agreed readily. We anticipated nothing less. If you'll follow me, we'll begin with our main research laboratory, where Dr. Mira Patel is preparing a demonstration of our Void Weaver detection systems. As the delegation moved through the station, Chen noted with satisfaction how their initial skepticism gradually transformed into reluctant admiration. The technology on display was genuinely impressive. Quantum communication arrays, dimensional sensors, adaptive biomechanical interfaces, all functioning systems that represented the pinnacle of human innovation. What they couldn't know was how specialized these developments were, islands of advancement surrounded by vast technological gaps that humanity still struggled to overcome. In the main laboratory, Mira Patel conducted a demonstration that left even the most suspicious delegate speechless. A controlled dimensional aperture opened, revealing the actual quantum signature of a Void Weaver captured during the Lyra incident. This contained specimen was extracted during our defense of the Lyra systems, Mira explained, manipulating controls that kept the writhing entity stable. We've been studying it to develop countermeasures. Envoth stepped closer, his specialized visual organs analyzing the creature. This matches the dimensional frequency our researchers encountered, he confirmed, turning to the other delegates. The threat is genuine. For 3 days, the inspection continued. Some areas were declared off-limits due to ongoing sensitive research, but enough was revealed to convince even the most skeptical observers. Throughout it all, Admiral Takeda personally guided high-level discussions, skillfully balancing disclosure with necessary secrecy. On the 4th day, in a specially prepared conference chamber, Takeda formally proposed the creation of an interspecies defense coalition. The Void Weavers represent an existential threat to all sentient life, he stated, addressing the assembled delegates. Humanity offers our dimensional technology, our detection systems, and our tactical expertise. In return, we seek partnership, specifically access to advanced shield harmonics, faster-than-light drive innovations, and biomechanical integration systems. What followed was 12 hours of intense negotiation, resulting in a preliminary agreement that would forever change humanity's place in the galactic community. By revealing their advancement while concealing their weaknesses, Earth had positioned itself as a crucial ally rather than a subjugated newcomer. As the delegation prepared to depart, Sentinel Prime Envoth requested a private audience with Admiral Takeda. In a secured chamber, the Draconid leader fixed Takeda with an unblinking stare. "Your deception is impressive, Admiral," Envoth stated flatly, "but incomplete." Takeda's expression remained neutral. "I'm not sure I understand, Sentinel Prime." "My species has existed for 12 million years," Envoth replied. "We recognize the pattern of a civilization advancing unevenly. Your dimensional technology is genuine, but your power generation systems are barely adequate. Your quantum communications are remarkable, but your material science lags significantly." A dangerous moment stretched between them. Yet, Envoth continued unexpectedly. "The Void Weavers are real, and your strategy is sound. The Draconid Imperium will honor the coalition agreement, not because we believe everything you've shown us, but because we respect the necessity of your deception." Takeda studied the ancient being before him, and the other council members. "Need not know my suspicions," Envoth concluded. "Survival takes precedence over absolute truth. But remember this, human, when the crisis passes, there will be a reckoning." After the delegation departed, Takeda called an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership. In the secure chamber deep beneath Titan's surface, he reported the developments. "The coalition is formed," he announced, "but our timeframe has narrowed. The Draconids suspect portions of our deception, though they've agreed to maintain the alliance." "Can they be trusted?" General Yazzie asked. "Necessity will ensure their cooperation for now," Takeda replied. "But we need to accelerate Project Lazarus. The real fleet must be ready before the Void Weavers arrive." As the meeting concluded, Mira approached Takeda privately. "Sir, there's something else you should know. During the dimensional aperture demonstration, I detected an anomalous reading from the captured specimen. Its quantum signature has changed since our last analysis." "Changed how?" "It's evolving, Admiral, adapting to our containment measures. And if the specimen can evolve while isolated, then the main Weaver Collective may be adapting to our defenses already," Takeda finished grimly. "How long until you can develop a new containment protocol?" 3 months, minimum," Mira admitted. "And we'll need the Draconid's dimensional frequency modulators to make it work." Takeda nodded slowly. "Then our deception has become our salvation, because now we truly need the coalition as much as we claimed we did." As the human leadership dispersed to their duties, alerts began coming in from the outer detection grid. The Void Weavers had accelerated their advance. The galactic community now had less time than anyone had predicted. The great gamble of humanity's deception had worked, but now they faced the even greater challenge of turning their alliance of convenience into a fighting force capable of saving civilization itself. The confrontation. The command center aboard the DSV Prometheus hummed with activity as officers from 7 different species coordinated the final defensive preparations. Captain Alina Reyes stood at the central tactical platform, studying the holographic display that showed the combined coalition fleet deployed in a 3-dimensional battle formation around the Arcturus system. "Status report," she ordered, her voice carrying across the busy chamber. "All vessels in position," reported Commander Chisheri of the Elshan contingent. "Draconid dimensional anchors are online and stabilizing local space. Tellarian energy redirection arrays charged to capacity." Elena nodded, noting that the coalition had assembled an impressive force in the 5 months since the alliance formed, minus 183 capital ships and over 500 support vessels, representing the combined might of 23 species. The Prometheus, humanity's flagship, served as the command vessel, its systems specifically designed to coordinate the diverse technologies of the Allied fleet. Admiral Takeda's image appeared on a secure channel. "Captain, latest intelligence from the forward observation posts indicates the Void Weavers will enter the system within 6 hours. Their advanced elements have already begun dimensional thinning in the outer sectors." "Understood, Admiral. Are the civilian evacuations complete?" "The last transports departed an hour ago. Arcturus is now clear of all non-military personnel." Takeda's expression remained grave. "This is our line in the sand, Captain. If Arcturus falls, the core systems will be directly exposed." What neither officer said aloud was that Arcturus represented humanity's best chance for victory. The system had been secretly prepared for this confrontation, with dimensional stabilizers hidden throughout the asteroid belt and quantum disruption mines placed at strategic coordinates. If they couldn't stop the Weavers here, the next defensive position would be significantly weaker. "The Coalition Council is requesting an update," Alina's executive officer reminded her. "Patch them through to Briefing Room 3, she ordered. "I'll address them personally." In the secure conference chamber, Alina faced the holographic projections of the Coalition's Leadership Council: Supreme Arbiter Kolvosh, Sentinel Prime Envoth, Ambassador Tilari, and representatives from 4 other major species. "The defensive perimeter is established," Alina reported. "Our combined scientific teams have developed countermeasures based on the Void Weaver specimens we've studied. We believe we can disrupt their dimensional phasing capability, forcing them to remain in normal space where our weapons can affect them." "And if these countermeasures fail?" asked Kolvosh, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Then we implement Contingency Omega," Alina replied, her voice steady. "The complete dimensional isolation of the Arcturus system." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Dimensional isolation was a desperate measure. It would seal the entire system in a pocket dimension, trapping the Void Weavers, but also sacrificing the Coalition forces within. "Your species continues to surprise us, Captain Reyes," Envoth observed. "When the Alliance formed, few believed humans possessed such capabilities. Yet here we stand, with your dimensional technology at the center of our defense." Alina detected the subtle questioning in the Draconid statement. The Coalition members still didn't fully trust humanity's sudden technological revelations, but necessity had pushed those concerns aside, for now. "We've all contributed essential elements to this defense," Alina responded diplomatically. "The Draconid phase modulators, Tellarian energy projection systems, Eltian neural interfaces, our strength lies in combination." As the briefing concluded, Alina returned to the command center to find Dr. Mira Patol waiting for her. "The dimensional sensors are detecting unusual activity," Mira reported quietly. "The Weavers aren't approaching in the pattern we predicted. They've adapted." Alina frowned. "How significantly?" "They're using a dimensional frequency we haven't observed before. The specimen we captured at Lyra couldn't have prepared us for this." Mira hesitated. "Our countermeasures may be less effective than we hoped. Can we adjust?" "We're working on recalibration now, but we need time." Time they didn't have. Alina made a rapid decision. "Implement Protocol Helix. We'll deploy the experimental phase shift disruptors." Mira's eyes widened. "Those haven't been fully tested. The power requirements alone will be met," Alina interrupted firmly. "The Draconids' contribution to the fleet includes 3 stellar energy collectors. Coordinate with their engineering teams immediately." As Mira hurried away, Alina faced the uncomfortable reality that humanity's carefully maintained facade of technological superiority was about to be severely tested. The phase shift disruptors represented the absolute cutting edge of Earth's capabilities, and even they might not be enough. 5 hours later, the first Void Weavers entered the system. They came not as vessels or entities in the conventional sense, but as distortions in reality itself, rippling tears in the fabric of space that hurt the mind to observe directly. The outer sensor grid registered their approach as a cascading failure of quantum stability, spreading inward from the system's edge. All vessels, maintain formation, Elena ordered as the command center erupted with activity. Dimensional anchors at full power, prepare to implement targeting solution Alpha 7. Across the Coalition fleet, crews braced for the first direct engagement with the enemy that had consumed dozens of uninhabited star systems. For many species, this was their first glimpse of the horror that humanity had warned them about, and the reality exceeded even the most terrifying briefings. Multiple dimensional ruptures forming, reported the sensor officer, his voice tight with tension. Count exceeds initial estimates, registering over 200 primary incursions. Elena's expression remained composed even as she processed the implications. Their intelligence had predicted fewer than half that number. Draconid vessels report dimensional stress exceeding sustainable levels, Commander Sherry announced. Their anchors are struggling to maintain stability. Redirect power from the secondary grid, Elena ordered. Prepare to deploy disruptors on my mark. The next 30 minutes unfolded in a chaotic ballet of action and reaction. As the Void Weavers penetrated deeper into the system, the Coalition implemented their carefully planned defense, dimensional anchors stabilizing space around the fleet, while specialized weapons targeted the ethereal entities. Initial results were promising. The disruptors forced several Weavers fully into normal space, where concentrated fire from Tellurian energy cannons dispersed their cohesion. Eltian neural disruptors confused the quasi-intelligent patterns of smaller entities, causing them to withdraw or dissolve entirely. Confirmed neutralization of 27 enemy constructs, reported the tactical officer with cautious optimism. The countermeasures are working. But the advantage proved temporary. The Void Weavers adapted with terrifying speed, shifting to new dimensional frequencies that bypassed the Coalition's carefully calibrated defenses. Within an hour, the battle had devolved into a desperate struggle to maintain position as reality itself became weaponized around them. 3 Draconid cruisers vanished completely when a spatial distortion enveloped them. A Tellurian dreadnought imploded as dimensional forces compressed its structure beyond material tolerance. Throughout the fleet, crews fought not just an enemy but the breakdown of physical laws they had relied upon all their lives. On the Prometheus's bridge, emergency systems activated as power fluctuations cascaded through the vessel's systems. Primary dimensional shielding failing, reported the engineering officer. Backup generators at critical levels. Elena made the call she had hoped to avoid. Implement contingency Cerberus. Transmit authentication code RISE Alpha 9 Echo. Deep within the Prometheus, systems that had remained dormant activated. The vessel had been built around a hidden core, technology that represented humanity's greatest secret, salvaged from the first encounter with the Void Weavers 3 years earlier. Dimensional inversion drive online, confirmed the systems officer, surprise evident in his voice as new capabilities appeared on his console. Captain, I'm reading. This can't be right. The ship is generating its own pocket dimension. Correct, Lieutenant. Elena acknowledged. Transmit dimensional coordinates to all Coalition vessels. Order immediate convergence on our position. Across the command frequency, confusion reigned as Coalition officers received orders to abandon their positions and fall back to the Prometheus, a tactic that contradicted all previous battle plans. Captain Rice, explain yourself, demanded Fleet Commander Kresh of the Tellurian forces. This retreat concedes the entire outer defense perimeter. This is not a retreat, Commander, Elena responded firmly. It's a tactical repositioning. The Prometheus will create a stable reference point within a dimensional fold. From there, we can attack from angles the Weavers cannot anticipate. It was a desperate gamble, revealing capabilities that humanity had kept hidden even from their allies, while attempting a maneuver that had never been attempted with so many vessels. But as the Void Weavers closed in, converging on the Coalition's position with predatory intent, there was no choice left. "All vessels, execute dimensional jump on my mark," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. 3, 2, 1. Execute. The Prometheus shuddered as its dimensional inversion drive activated fully. Space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a pocket of stability as reality distorted around them. Coalition vessels that managed to reach the coordinates found themselves pulled into this artificial safe haven, a bubble of normal physics surrounded by the dimensional chaos of the battle. From the bridge of his flagship, Sentinel Prime Envoth watched in stunned silence as the human vessel performed what Draconid scientists had theorized but never achieved: the creation of a self-sustaining dimensional pocket large enough to house multiple capital ships. "So this is what you've been hiding," he murmured, understanding dawning. Not wholesale technological superiority, but specific, targeted innovations. Sentinel Prime, his science officer interrupted urgently. "Sensors indicate the pocket dimension is stable, but the Prometheus is experiencing critical power fluctuations. They cannot maintain this field indefinitely." Envoth made a swift decision. "Divert power from our dimensional modulators to the human vessel. Integrate our systems with theirs." Across the Coalition fleet, similar realizations led to similar decisions. The Tellarians linked their energy redirection arrays. The Eltians contributed their neural interfaces to help process the massive data requirements, and the Meridian Collective offered their computational abilities to predict stability patterns. In the command center of the Prometheus, Elena watched as alien technologies interfaced with human systems in ways their designers had never intended, creating a synergy born of desperation and ingenuity. "Dimensional pocket stabilizing," reported the systems officer. "Allied contributions are reinforcing the field." "Good," Elena acknowledged. "Now for Phase 2. Bring weapon systems online and prepare for dimensional inversion attack." The true genius of humanity's strategy now revealed itself. From within their stable pocket dimension, the Coalition forces could target the Void Weavers through precisely calculated dimensional windows, striking at the entities while remaining protected from their reality warping effects. For the next 6 hours, the battle raged across multiple dimensional planes. The Void Weavers, encountering resistance unlike anything they had previously experienced, began to focus their efforts on collapsing the dimensional pocket. But the combined technologies of 23 species, working in harmony for the first time, proved remarkably resilient. Slowly, methodically, the Coalition forces began to turn the tide. Void Weavers were isolated, contained, and neutralized. Their dimensional manipulations were countered by increasingly sophisticated responses from the Allied fleet. As the battle neared its 14th hour, Elena received a priority communication from Dr. Patel in the science bay. "Captain, we've identified a pattern in the Weaver's dimensional signatures," Mira reported excitedly. "They're not individual entities. They're extensions of a central consciousness, located in a dimensional fold at coordinates 227 by 184 by 053. "Can we target it?" Elena asked, hope rising for the first time since the battle began. "Yes, but our weapons alone won't be sufficient," Mira replied. "We need a concentrated dimensional collapse, precisely calibrated to the Weaver's own frequency." Elena opened a channel to the Coalition command vessels. "All ships, this is Captain Reyes. We've identified the central node controlling the Weaver entities. I'm transmitting targeting coordinates now. We need a synchronized dimensional attack using all available technologies." For a tense moment, silence filled the communication channels. Then, one by one, the Allied commanders acknowledged the order and began preparation. "This will require precise timing," Envoth cautioned. "A synchronized dimensional collapse of this magnitude has never been attempted." "Then we'll be the first," Elena replied with confidence she didn't entirely feel. "Coalition vessels, prepare to execute Operation Sundering on my mark." As final preparations were made, Admiral Takeda's image appeared on a private channel. "Captain, our models indicate the Prometheus's core may not survive channeling this much dimensional energy," he warned quietly. "You should consider evacuation protocols." Elena met his gaze steadily. "With respect, Admiral, if this fails, there won't be anywhere to evacuate to. The Prometheus was built for this moment." Takeda nodded, understanding the unspoken truth. The flagship had always been designed as both weapon and potential sacrifice. Humanity's ultimate contingency if conventional methods failed. Coalition forces execute Operation Sundering. Now, across the fleet, specialized systems activated simultaneously. Draconid dimensional anchors, Tellarian energy projectors, Eltian neural interfaces, and 24 other technologies combined their effects, channeled through the Prometheus's dimensional inversion drive. Reality itself seemed to scream as opposing dimensional forces collided. At the targeted coordinates, space-time folded inward, creating a collapse point that pulled the Weaver consciousness toward it with irresistible force. On the Prometheus's bridge, systems overloaded and emergency containment fields activated as the vessel channeled energies it was never designed to handle. Hull integrity warnings blared as dimensional stress threatened to tear the ship apart. "Containment failing on decks 7 through 12, reported the damage control officer. "Dimensional bleed-through in engineering sections. "Divert all non-essential power to containment," Elena ordered, gripping her command chair as the ship shuddered violently. "Maintain focus on the target coordinates." For 3 agonizing minutes, the Prometheus hung suspended between existence and oblivion, channeling forces that defied conventional physics. Throughout the ship, crew members worked desperately to maintain systems that were operating far beyond their design parameters. Then, suddenly, it was over. Where the Void Weaver consciousness had existed, sensors now detected only empty space. Normal, stable space, untainted by dimensional distortions. The remaining Weaver extensions, cut off from their controlling intelligence, dissipated like smoke in a strong wind. "Target neutralized," confirmed the tactical officer, disbelief evident in his voice. Dimensional readings returning to normal parameters throughout the system. A ragged cheer went up across the command center, quickly tempered by the realization of what their victory had cost. 27 coalition vessels destroyed completely, dozens more severely damaged. And the Prometheus itself, while still intact, had suffered catastrophic systems failures throughout its structure. As damage reports flooded in, Elena opened a channel to the coalition fleet. "All vessels, this is Captain Reyes. The threat has been neutralized. Begin recovery operations and prepare to render assistance to damaged ships." In the aftermath, as emergency teams worked to stabilize the Prometheus's failing systems, Elena made her way to the observation deck. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the coalition fleet regrouping. Vessels of wildly different designs and origins, now bound together by shared sacrifice and victory. Admiral Takeda joined her there, his normally stoic expression showing signs of both exhaustion and relief. "It worked," Elena said simply. "Yes," Takeda agreed, though not exactly as planned. That was an understatement. The battle had forced humanity to reveal technological capabilities they had intended to keep secret. The careful balance of their deception had been disrupted, perhaps permanently. "The Council will have questions," Elena acknowledged, "about the dimensional inversion drive, about what else we might be hiding." "Let them ask," Takeda replied with unexpected lightness. "We've earned the right to some secrets, I think, and they've learned the value of our contributions." As they spoke, a communication alert sounded. Sentinel Prime Envoth was requesting permission to board the Prometheus with a team of Draconid engineers to assist with repairs. "It seems our allies are in a generous mood," Elena observed. "Victory has that effect," Takeda replied. "The question is whether the Alliance will survive once the immediate threat has passed." Elena watched as coalition vessels coordinated recovery efforts, working together with an efficiency that would have seemed impossible months earlier. "I think it might," she said, not because of our deception or their fear, but because today proved what we can accomplish together. As damage control teams fought to stabilize the Prometheus's critical systems, the first chapter in humanity's new relationship with the galactic community was being written, not in diplomatic chambers or formal treaties, but in the shared struggle for survival against an enemy that had threatened them all. The New Dawn. 1 month after the Battle of Arcturus, the Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council had been transformed. Where once rigid seating arrangements had separated species by historical alliances and power blocks, the chamber now featured a circular configuration, with no species given prominence over others. In the center of this new arrangement stood Captain Elena Reyes and Admiral Takeda, representing Earth in the first full council session since the victory over the Void Weavers. The mood was markedly different from their first appearance. Gone was the hostility and suspicion, replaced by a complex mixture of respect, curiosity, and lingering wariness. Supreme Arbiter Kolvosh opened the proceedings with uncharacteristic humility. We gather today to formally recognize the formation of the Galactic Defense Coalition, an alliance born of necessity, tested in fire, and now proposed as a permanent arrangement between our civilizations. He gestured toward the human representatives. We also gather to acknowledge the contribution of humanity, a species that revealed itself to us through deception, yet ultimately proved its commitment to the common welfare through sacrifice. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The Supreme Arbiter's acknowledgement of humanity's deception was unexpected, as was his apparent acceptance of it. Admiral Takeda stepped forward. Honorable representatives, I come before you today with both gratitude and apology. Earth chose a path of selective disclosure when we revealed ourselves to the Council. We showed you our strengths while concealing our weaknesses, presenting ourselves as more universally advanced than we truly were. Takeda's candor silenced the chamber. Such direct acknowledgement of deception was unprecedented in Council proceedings. We did this not from malice, but from analysis of historical precedent. New species joining the galactic community have typically been subjugated, exploited, or marginalized. We sought to position ourselves as equals from the beginning, to ensure humanity would have a meaningful voice in decisions affecting our future. Sentinel Prime Envoth rose from his seat, his massive scaled form commanding attention. The Draconid Imperium suspected humanity's selective disclosure from the early stages of our alliance. Yet we chose to maintain the partnership, recognizing that your specialized innovations, particularly in dimensional engineering, represented genuine advancement that complemented our own technologies. Envoth's neural crest flared in the Draconid expression of respectful acknowledgement. The Battle of Arcturus vindicated this decision. Humanity's dimensional inversion drive, combined with Draconid stabilization technology, Tellarian energy systems, and Elshan neural interfaces, created a synergy none of our species could have achieved alone. Ambassador Tellari of the Elshan Federation joined the discussion. What the Sentinel Prime describes highlights a fundamental truth this council has long ignored. Specialization among our civilizations is not weakness, but strength. For millennia, we have measured advancement on a linear scale, assuming that all technologies must develop in predictable sequences. Her silver eyes swept the chamber. Humanity developed dimensional engineering to unprecedented levels, while still using fusion reactors our civilizations would consider obsolete. The Draconids mastered quantum materialization, while their computing systems lagged centuries behind the Meridian Collective. The Tellarians can manipulate energy in ways we're still struggling to understand, yet their biological sciences remain primitive. Hilari gestured toward a holographic display showing the integrated systems that had defeated the Void Weavers. Our victory came not from technological uniformity, but from diversity, from the unexpected combinations of specialized developments from each civilization. As the council debate continued, Dr. Mira Patel entered the chamber, accompanied by scientific representatives from 7 coalition species. They carried with them the preliminary findings from the post-battle analysis, data that would reshape galactic understanding of dimensional physics. The Arcturus victory was significant, Mira explained to the assembled council, but it addressed only the vanguard of the Void Weaver migration. Our combined sensors have detected 3 additional consciousness nodes approaching from different vectors. The threat has not ended, it has evolved. This sobering news silenced the diplomatic pleasantries. The coalition victory, while genuine, had been merely the opening engagement in what now appeared to be a prolonged conflict. We estimate 8 months before the next node reaches populated space, Mira continued. But we now have something we lacked before, a unified technological approach and proof that the Weavers can be defeated. In the hours that followed, the council chambers transformed into a strategic planning center. Representatives who had been diplomatic adversaries for centuries now worked side by side, contributing their specialized knowledge to a comprehensive defense initiative. Admiral Takeda found himself in a private discussion with Supreme Arbiter Kulvash and Sentinel Prime Envoth, the 3 most influential leaders in the new coalition. Earth's shipyards have begun construction on 5 additional vessels with dimensional inversion capability, Takeda informed them, continuing the new policy of transparency. But our production capacity is limited. We'll need the industrial bases of multiple civilizations to build an effective defense fleet. The Draconid Imperium has already converted our military production facilities to focus on dimensional stabilization systems. Envoth replied. 26 manufacturing worlds now work exclusively on technology compatible with your inversion drives. Kulvash's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his species. This new reality requires a more profound change than mere military production. For millennia, the Council has maintained peace through balanced competition and carefully managed technological exchange. Species were categorized, their development monitored and sometimes deliberately limited to maintain stability. He gestured toward the activities throughout the chamber. That paradigm cannot survive. The Void Weavers represent an existential threat that requires unrestricted collaboration and innovation. You're proposing to dismantle the entire regulatory framework of galactic civilization, Envoth observed, his tone neutral but his neural crest flaring with interest. I am proposing evolution, Kulvash corrected. A transition from managed competition to genuine symbiosis. The Battle of Arcturus demonstrated that our combined technologies, freely shared and integrated, create capabilities greater than the sum of their parts. Takeda studied the ancient diplomat carefully. Such a fundamental change will face resistance. Many species have benefited from the existing hierarchy. Indeed, Kulvash acknowledged, which is why we must begin with the Dimensional Defense Coalition as a model, a proving ground for this new approach. 3 days later, the Council formally ratified the Arcturus Accords, a series of agreements that established a permanent alliance structure, technology-sharing protocols, and integrated defense systems. At the signing ceremony, Captain Alina Reyes represented Earth alongside Admiral Takeda. As the formalities concluded, Alina found herself approached by a young Talarian engineer who had distinguished himself during the battle. Your vessel. It was never meant to survive channeling that much dimensional energy, was it? He asked quietly. Alina considered her response carefully. The Prometheus was designed with multiple contingencies in mind. Its primary mission was to protect Earth, and by extension, all sentient life. The Talarian's sensory tendrils rippled with understanding. A vessel built to be sacrificed if necessary. My analysis of the dimensional inversion drive suggests it was operating at nearly 300% of sustainable capacity during the final attack. Your engineers must have known the probable outcome. They did, Alina acknowledged. As did the crew. Yet you proceeded anyway. We did what was necessary, Alina replied simply. As did every species in the Coalition fleet. The Talarian extended a manipulator appendage in his species' gesture of profound respect. The Void Weavers underestimated us because they perceived separate civilizations with separate technologies. They could not comprehend that diversity would become our strength rather than our weakness. As the Talarian moved away, Alina joined Admiral Takeda at the observation deck overlooking Earth's orbital shipyards. Below them, construction had already begun on the next generation of coalition vessels, ships that would incorporate technologies from dozens of civilizations, designed specifically to counter the Void Weaver threat. The Council has approved our proposal for integrated defense systems throughout coalition space, Takeda informed her. Dimensional early warning networks will extend to the galactic rim. The Draconids have offered their quantum materialization technology to help construct the infrastructure. Elena studied the activity below. And humanity's role in all this. Coordinators, innovators, bridges between different technological approaches, Takeda replied. The very qualities that once made us perceive ourselves as vulnerable have become our greatest strength. We understand adaptation and integration better than species that developed in technological isolation. And our deception. The selective disclosures. Takeda smiled slightly, officially forgiven under the Arcturus Accord's amnesty provisions. Unofficially, I believe many species have developed a new appreciation for strategic ambiguity. The Meridian Collective has already approached us about establishing direct diplomatic channels outside the Council framework. As twilight fell over Earth's orbital facilities, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. They had entered galactic society through misdirection, revealed themselves fully in crisis, and now found themselves central to a new interspecies alliance unlike anything in recorded history. The next Void Weaver confrontation would come, that was certain. But the civilization that would face it would be fundamentally different from the divided, competitive species that had existed before. Integration had replaced isolation. Collaboration had superseded competition. In her quarters aboard the newly commissioned coalition vessel Unity, Elena reviewed reports from the Dimensional Early Warning Network. The approaching Void Weaver nodes had already adapted their approach vectors, attempting to bypass the coalition's defensive preparations. But the combined sensor technologies of 7 species tracked their movements with unprecedented precision. A communication request came through from Supreme Commander Envoth, who now led the combined defense fleet from the Draconid flagship Eternal Vigilance. Captain Reyes, the ancient being, greeted her. The Draconid High Council has reviewed your tactical proposals. We find them unconventional, but compelling. The integration of human dimensional phasing with our materialization technology creates possibilities we had not considered. Unconventional approaches will be necessary, Commander, Elena replied. The Weavers are already adapting to our established tactics. Envoth's neural crest rippled with what Elena had learned to recognize as amusement. I am 11,000 years old, Captain. In all that time, I never imagined I would one day be taking tactical advice from a species that was climbing trees when my ancestors built their first starship. The universe is full of surprises, Elena observed. Indeed, Envoth agreed, including the discovery that deception can sometimes lead to greater truth. Your species' strategy was dishonorable by traditional standards, yet it catalyzed changes that centuries of honest diplomacy failed to achieve. As their conversation concluded, Elena received a priority message from Earth. The Prometheus, salvaged after the Battle of Arcturus and extensively rebuilt, was ready for its recommissioning ceremony. As the first true hybrid vessel in the Coalition fleet, it incorporated technologies from 17 different civilizations, with systems designed specifically to be operated by a multi-species crew. Admiral Takeda had requested that Elena return to take command of the vessel for its maiden voyage under Coalition authority. The message included the Prometheus's new mission parameters: exploration of dimensional anomalies beyond the galactic rim, seeking to understand the origins of the Void Weavers and potentially find ways to communicate with or redirect their migration. As Elena prepared for the journey back to Earth, she paused at the observation deck of the Unity. The stars looked different now, not distant points of light representing territories and boundaries, but connected nodes in a network of civilizations working together for the first time in galactic history. Humanity had gambled everything on a strategic deception, revealing themselves through carefully managed disclosure rather than approaching the galactic community as supplicants. That gamble had altered the course of multiple civilizations and potentially saved all sentient life from extinction.